Hi again folks, how's all doing? Happy Halloween. Well, as you can see here, I've been sent a Hornby Stephenson's rocket. I've looked at a few old Chang rockets before, but this is one of the newer ones that Hornby produced in a nice little box set with 3 coaches. So it's going to be a bit different and hopefully a much better runner than the old model. It was sent to me by a chap called Steve who told me that a couple of wires have become detached from the tender and he didn't much fancy attempting to repair it. Quick test on the power, but I don't think it's going to run, I don't think. No, not a sausage. So we'll shunt it into the shed and we'll see if we can sort it out. Alright then, a wee teeny tiny totty rocket. These things are tiny. This is a much nicer model than the old one, I have to say. I wouldn't mind one of these actually. Well, I'll see how it runs, but yeah, nice wee thing. The problem with it, just turn it over, it's a bit awkward with that big long chimney. Actually, I think I'll get the sponge in. I can hang it over the edge, like that. That's better. So the problem is we've got 2 wires that have become detached. That one, I can just get a hold of it, they're tiny. So that one's loose, and that one. I'm assuming this one wants to solder onto there, and that one wants to solder onto there. And it's going to be very, very fiddly. And there's no way I'm doing it in situ, so we'll undo this screw and hopefully this will come out and that'll make things a bit easier. I'd like to see if there's holes through this little circuit board to put the wires through, because if there is, it'll be worthwhile removing that solder to get these soldered back on properly. We can see we've got there's the gears, and we've got pickups on all 4 wheels on the locomotive. And there's also pickups on the tender wheels. Alright, okay. Yeah. It can be a bit challenging soldering things as tiny as that. But we'll see how it goes. Let's see what happens when we undo this screw. Do that. Does this come loose? Oh, no. I'd really hoped it would. Or is it clipped on? Yeah, I think that should just come out, but I maybe need to remove the wheels. How easy is that going to be? I'm terrified of breaking this thing. Right, that's quite good. They come out quite easily. So that's that one out. And that one. So wheels removed and that screw, I'd really hope this would just pop out. So the screw is actually holding on a little circuit board underneath that. Oh, believe me, this isn't going to be easy. I'm actually wondering if this unplugs. That looks like a little ribbon plug to me. And we could maybe pull this out to solder onto it. I don't like the look of that at all. It's so tiny, so delicate. And the problem with soldering in situ is we've got, these wires in the way. We might melt them, we might melt the plastic there and there, which is holding this on. We've got a problem here. I'd really hoped that would come out, but it doesn't look like it's going to. That screw is kind of pointless taking that out. This is a very appropriate repair for Halloween, because this is a scary thing to do, it really is. Jings. I think it's unlikely that those wires go through this. I think they are just soldered on. So I think it might be worth a bash just trying to solder these wires on as quickly and delicately as I can. I can't think what else to do because I don't fancy my chances of getting this out. Is that one of those that just levers down? Lift that up. Does this pull back? Yes, it does. There, got that out. Blimey. Right, that's going to make things easier, but I'm still a bit nervous. Right, what's on the other side of this? So yeah, there's no wee holes, so this is just going to be a case of getting those wires soldered onto there. Right, I'll get this out the road just now. I'm kind of making an assumption about which way around these wires go. It's entirely possible they cross over, but that one could go there, and that one could go over there. Okay, we'll strip them and we'll try and solder them, but not going to be easy. So that one's stripped. There we go. Wire stripped. Now I need to figure out a way to hold that in place and hold that in place. I think we'll put a wee bit of solder on the ends of the wires before trying to solder them. Just tin them, because it's, you know, they're too small to twist. So I'll see if I can tin them. Because in principle this is very simple, just solder a couple of wires on, job done. But it's just so small and fiddly. It's I can understand why Steve didn't want to do it. Right. Tin that one. Tin that one. So I've got the wires just coated with a wee bit of solder. I'm terrified of the other solder joints breaking. It's not the cleverest design in the world, this, I have to say. Yeah, maybe like that. I think I might change my solder tip. I've got a pointed one that might be better. This is going to be hot. Well, I've got one on. That went better than I expected. That was the easy one. So this one is going to be really tricky because it's between two wires. That one I've just done was on the outside. It's on. So there we go, the wires are soldered on. Right, let's plug this back in, see if it works. Right, so the little circuit board has popped out of position. That's because I took that screw out. I didn't need to take the screw out. So I'll try and get it back into place, but back behind that clip. Oh wow. See, this black plastic thing appears to be glued onto the tender frame. Annoyingly, if that unclipped, if that came off, this would be so much easier. So that's not a good design. It'd be much better if that screw had gone right through into the tender frame and just held it all together. But all that little screw is doing is holding that little circuit board onto this black thing. And it's become detached, and there's a little clip on the other side. And trying to get it back is really difficult. There we go. Please don't fall out. Just give it a wee shove that direction. Put that down through there to line it up. There. Right, where's that screw? That was a wee bit nerve-wracking. Right, so that's that screw back in. It's holding that little circuit board in place. So now I need to get that little ribbon cable back into there, if I can. And it's got to clip down to there like that. There. Poof. We'll pop the wheels back in and we'll see if this goes. I'm a bit nervous about it though, because if it doesn't go, I'm not quite sure what else to do. Wheels in. So there we go, all soldered back up, plugged back in, wheels in. But you can see that those little wires are always they're always going to be a potential point of failure. They're constantly getting flexed. Just looking at the underside of the locomotive, doesn't look like there's any lubrication in the gears. That's maybe intentional because they're exposed, but I think I'd quite like to get some, just a wee bit of oil into the axles. And maybe just a wee bit onto the gears. Taking that locomotive apart to replace the motor or something. Yeah, that would be fun. Thankfully I haven't had to do that. And I think the DCC gubbins is in here. Take that off, there it is. Got a little blanking plate. So you would squeeze a decoder in there. Now there we go, fingers crossed. Okay, let's turn on the power. Well, yeah, it works. Look at that. The needle's barely moving. It's probably about 20 milliamps. So there we go. I'm very relieved that that works, because if that hadn't worked, the thought of having to go in and redo some of that wiring and do a bit of testing, yeah. There probably is a couple of tests I could have done now that I think about it, but soldered the wires on and it works. So job done. Okay, let's pull Rocket out the shed. So there we go, that's Stephenson's rocket sorted. Simple job of resoldering a couple of wires really, but made quite difficult by the teeny tiny size of this model and soldering to that little flexible PCB, which you really need to remove to be able to do it properly. All very fiddly and a bit nerve-wracking to do on someone else's model, as you know, these things can go wrong very, very easily. It's a very nice looking model, especially with the crew added and the 3-course set, and it's a huge improvement on the old model. However, it's still very light, which can cause some pickup issues now and again, depending on how smooth and clean your track is. But this runs pretty well and was fun to watch crawling its way around the layout. Yeah, it's something I'd maybe quite like to pick up one day. Mind you, coupling the coaches together is a right fiddle, and I can imagine some people having real problems with that. But yeah, a bit scary working on an otherwise pristine set like this belonged to someone else, so quite appropriate for Halloween. Okay folks, I shall get this packed up and sent back to Steve, and I'll catch you later.